Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of Talk by Talk. Today's episode is an interesting one and also a powerful one at that. I'm going to be talking about something that we've all encountered at some point or the other. Here's a question for you. Have you ever been around someone, whether it's a family member, whether it's a coworker, whether it's a friend, who always seems to be upset at the world? They always see the negative side of things, and being around them can make you feel so drained. That is what bitterness can look like. So on this episode, I am going to be unpacking all things bitterness. What does it really mean for someone to be bitter, and how can bitterness affect their relationship? And more importantly, how can we handle our interaction with bitter people in ways that preserves our own self-peace and our own inner joy? If it's possible, how can we find ways to help people who are bitter? Because dealing with bitterness in its own can be very challenging. But believe it or not, if we understand what is behind a person being bitter, we can approach dealing with them with empathy and setting healthy boundaries, and even so, creating a healthy interactions with those people. In this era of social media where everything is on display, but the glamorous and the crazies, encountering bitterness is not far-fetched. Have you ever scrolled through your social media and then you see something very beautiful and glamorous? You find a post that warrants an owl moment, and then you go into the comment. Storm. The comments is where things be going down. The comments is where you really experience the intent of social media, human interactions. You go into the comment and you just see bitterness slap you in the face, and sometimes you are compelled to feel sorry for the person that made that post. People just have opinions that sometimes you just like, go heal. I hope you handle whatever is going on with you. And I tell you, social media has exposed the level of bitterness that is drowning this world. Social media has exposed the bitterness that is embedded in the minds of humans. But how do we navigate today's world? How do we deal with these things, either in person or on social media? There are many potential reasons someone may become bitter. It's rarely just one thing. It might stem from hard experience, difficult experiences like being betrayed by loved ones, facing rejection and losses. In a workplace, a person can become bitter if their hard work go unnoticed, if all their contribution rarely gets any type of recognition over time. In a relationship, a person can become bitter if they've been cheated on, if they've been lied to, if they've been dumped for no reason. And in a friendship, a person can become bitter for being backstabbed by a friend they trusted. In a family, siblings can become bitter if a parent favors one over the other. When people eventually become bitter about some of the difficult things that have happened to them, is because they left a wound that resulted from some sort of hurt that they experienced to go unhealed. And this can affect not just them, but the people around them. As the saying goes, hurt people hurt people. When people nurse a wound that resulted from some difficult experiences in their life, over time, that hurt don't just sit with them anymore. They start sometimes unconsciously projecting that hurt to other people by being mean, being hateful, being disrespectful, and a whole bunch of other things. Now, let's quickly touch on the psychology of bitter people. You see, bitterness is often used as a form of self-protection. People sometimes uses it as a shield to avoid feeling vulnerable or getting hurt again. They may feel like they have to expect the worst from everyone and everything so they don't get disappointed. And sometimes people who are bitter feels like by maintaining that negative loop. They are preventing themselves from experiencing any future hurt or pain or betrayal or disappointment. But what really happens is that they get stuck in that negative loop for so long that they're unable to move forward. They get stuck so long that they begin to project that bitterness onto other people to make themselves feel better, to ease that burden of bitterness. So the simple explanation to why people are bitter is that there's a reason for it. Understandably so. But here is my opinion. I believe that being bitter is an exhausting emotion to experience. I strongly do believe that. Because sometimes when I scroll through social media and read people's comments, I get tired on their behalf. I be like, it must be so hard to be you. I get really exhausted just reading the level of negativity that some people put out to the world. You see, research have shown that bitterness and holding on to anger can increase stress. It can impact your mental health, and even it can impact your physical health and cause some serious health issues over time. But unfortunately, bitterness keeps people so trapped in this negative mindset that they don't know how to get out. They don't know how to experience joy. They don't know how to experience growth. They don't know how to experience any type of connections. So whatever outlet they get, they put it out there. So you see, bitterness does not only just affect the person that is experiencing that emotion. Bitterness affects everyone around them. Being around someone who is constantly bitter can drain you emotionally. You might feel like you are walking on eggshells just being around these people, or you're constantly trying to avoid topics, trying to avoid doing things that might just set them off over time. And this is exhausting. You see, it's not just emotionally draining to be around a bitter person. It is also very difficult to get through to that kind of a person. You find that when you're trying to have a conversation with a bitter person, their response always comes off defensive. They lash out unexpectedly. That usually happens because they're carrying around this unresolved hurt, this unresolved anger, this unresolved pain, and sometimes they just take it out on the next available person even without realizing it. And that makes healthy and open communication damn near impossible with that kind of a person. And simple communication, simple attempt of conversation always turns out to be argument, and it always leads to misunderstanding and people's feelings get hurt. At the long run, bitterness always ends up driving a wedge between people. It can create resentment even in the healthiest relationship. If one person is stuck in a circle of blame and anger, it can eventually wear down trust and closeness that once existed in a relationship. So what do we do if life puts us in close proximity with bitter people? The first thing I would say is approach with empathy and compassion when dealing with bitter people. I am leading with that because it'll be way easier to put a barrier between ourselves and bitter people. But you see, with empathy and with compassion, we'll afford ourselves the ability to show understanding, the ability to understand that bitterness stems from pain, stems from hurt, and it will become a little easier for us to respond with compassion instead of reacting harshly, or instead of reacting defensively or judging those kind of people. It will allow you to sometimes acknowledge their feelings even when they don't earn it, without letting yourself get sucked into all that negativity. The second thing would be set boundaries. While empathy and compassion is very important when dealing with a bitter person, we also have to set boundaries. If a person's bitterness is starting to drain you, it is okay to create some distance. This doesn't mean that you are abandoning that person. It just means that you are protecting your own space. If you're trying to have a healthy conversation with a bitter person and it turns out to be something negative, you can try something like, I understand you are going through tough times, but can we focus on something positive for a little bit? Or if the conversation remains negative, mostly because of the other person, you can politely excuse yourself or try to change the subject. What you have to understand is boundaries are there to keep relationship healthy. Boundaries are not there to tear relationships apart. They are there to keep relationship grounded, and you should not be afraid to use them. Number 3, be mindful with how much you engage with a bitter person. Choose your own response wisely, because a bitter person can quickly reel you in, and before you know it, you sound just as bitter as they sound. You act just as bitter as they act. You respond just as bitter as they respond. So it is wise to choose your response carefully. Not every comment needs reaction from you. Sometimes silence is more effective than engaging in negativity. For instance, if they are complaining or being sarcastic, just listen without adding fuel to the fire. By not reacting, sometimes you show them, or you show a negative or a bitter person that their bitterness does not impact your life in any shape or form. Just maybe that can make them have a rethink of their lives. But people feed off of, they say, misery love company. When a bitter person gets an engagement from someone who is supposedly of a more positive mind, they feed off of that. So when you don't give that energy, they more than likely would retreat into their little hole. And also, if you are comfortable and if you are confident, you can always seize every opportunity to encourage self-reflection in a bitter person. So sometimes a gentle question like, what do you think could help your situation? What do you think can help you heal that wound? What do you think can help you ease that hurt and that pain that has made you so bitter? You could ask questions like, what do you think will make you feel happy again? This kind of question can make a person who has been trapped in this circle of negativity really take a pause and sit back and reevaluate their life and reevaluate the role they've played in their own happiness. And if you have tried everything from showing empathy, from showing compassion, from setting boundaries, and the bitterness is still overwhelming, it's okay to walk away. Sometimes the best way to protect your own peace is to take a step back and reevaluate the relationship that you have with some people. It doesn't mean that you're giving up on them forever, but it does mean that you've recognized that you can't fix everyone. And at some point, it's not only up to you to meet them in the middle. It's not only up to you to meet them halfway. It is also up to them to decide if they are ready to let go of their own bitterness, if they are ready to let go of the situation, of the pain, of the hurt that has put them in a place of persistent resentment. And to a person who carries some level of bitterness in their heart, understand that that bitterness is a form of unhealed pain. That bitterness is coming from some of the most difficult experience that you have had. And the truth is, until you allow yourself to heal, that pain will keep showing up in your life and in different ways. So if you are watching and you are feeling like, okay, I resonate with this because I feel this bitterness because of one thing that has happened, I need you to understand that healing is possible. But it will require for you to identify and acknowledge that feeling. It will require for you to face those feelings and work towards letting them go. Work towards letting the past go. Work towards healing yourself permanently. Let me wrap up this episode by saying, whether you are dealing with bitterness yourself or you know someone who is, there are resources to help. I know that sometimes life can throw some of the hardest balls. Life can put us in some difficult situations that we did not bargain for, situations that we did not plan for, to a point where we see the need to embrace bitterness and hide behind bitterness just to shield ourselves from any type of future hurt or pain and disappointment. But you can heal. Therapy can help. Support groups can help. Self-help books are out there. These books offer tools for processing hurt and tools that can help you move forward. Remember, bitterness does not have to define your life forever or your relationship. Your heart posture cannot possibly remain in this circle of bitterness forever, because it really comes a point where it will become tiring for you as well, not just the people around you. In that moment, you have to realize that you have a choice, whether to hang on to that bitterness and continue to put it out in the world, or whether to allow yourself to experience joy again, to allow yourself to connect with people again, to allow yourself to be happy. So challenge yourself today. Explore these resources. Life is too short to live with unresolved pains. Life is too short to let that hurt linger. Heck, life is too short for you to spend your time putting all that bitterness into the world through the comments you leave online, through in your workplace, in your friendship, in your relationship. You can possibly use the rest of your life, your short life, to put out bitterness in the world, to be bitter, to remain bitter, simply because life threw you a curveball at some point and you felt like you couldn't handle it. You did not come into this world bitter. Life and circumstances put your heart in that position. So now it's up to you to free yourself once you shift away from being the person that puts out negative energy into the world to being the person that puts out positive energy to the world, to being the person that celebrates beauty, to being the person that celebrates goodness, to being the person that celebrates good things. Life will really make sense one more time again. Thank you so much for sticking around and watching up to this point. If this video touched your heart, if this video resonated with you, if you feel like this video will help someone, please subscribe, please like, please share this video. And thank you guys, and I'll see you on the next episode. Bye.